Hello, Scorpio, my dears. I think this might be a slightly long reading because I'm getting several images coming in and they're all really relevant to this shift that you're making. And the Spirit's very much here to help support you in how to navigate one of the trickiest parts of spiritual growth and consciousness evolution. And that is, how do we deal with an ego that has been based in a certain set of values and standards, and now as we evolve in consciousness, has to translate that into a new way of being. How is that happening? Why is it tricky? So you're getting two images that come. One is you're standing in your kitchen and you've got a four-sided cheese grater. Right next to that, you've got a snazzy little machine that's all ready to go. You could just pop the cheese in there and blitz it to exactly what you want it to be, like that. But not you. You're taking that hunk of cheddar and you're grating it on this grater. Now, for those of you who've worked in the kitchen at all with cheese graters, you know that can really be very tiring, especially when it's a large group or a hard cheese. But you're doing it, and you're doing it with a sense of pride, accomplishment, and another adjective I can't quite think of exactly, but it's kind of like, there, I did it. So there's almost a righteousness. That's the word. It's almost a righteousness that you've chosen to do it the more difficult way, the traditional way. Thank you. Traditional way, as opposed to the newfangled, I can blitz it with a machine way. Now, I'm hearing traditional, not old-fashioned. Okay? So for me, what I get when I look at this image for you, Scorpio, it is that sense of, the phrase that comes to mind is, what are you trying to prove? And not like, well, what are you trying to prove? But what is it that you are, what value do you get out of doing it this way? How does it feed your ego? How does it feed your self-image? Now, let's remember, the ego is not a bad thing. The ego is the personality structure, which we absolutely need. We need to have a structure within which our mind can work and our personality can develop. We are meant to take that personality, that ego structure, out into the world, have experiences, and then bring it back to center, where we integrate and understand all of the lessons, the deeper lessons that go along with it, which is part of the way we evolve our consciousness, okay? How we evolve higher values. Now, what I'm getting with all of this is that then the second image that I get, you're in a hall of mirrors, but unlike the funhouse hall of mirrors where it's all distorted, it's in a dark space and you've got mirrors here, all sorts of different mirrors that you can go and you can look at. And these mirrors, you are representing different aspects of your personality, different aspects that you have shown the world, different aspects of your ego structure that have been relevant to you in some way in terms of stabilizing your image of yourself. Now, what Spirit is saying is that they really are here to help you transition, because what you've been doing is you've been working, as we all do, with our ego structure, and you have a certain set of values, many of them based around service. And when I say service, it doesn't have to be all, like Mother Teresa kind of stuff. It can be service industries, but the attitude with which you do the service is one of really helping people. It's done with helping. It's not trying to get, it's helping people. Okay, there's an attitude of that. Whether it's work, whether it's family, it's a quality. So what Spirit is saying is that this transitional point in life right now on the planet, it's really fascinating because people are coming face to face with the mirrors through which they have projected themselves and the images that they have believed they have projected out onto the world. And while these images, for the most part, and I'm talking now to you in the collective, Scorpio collective, while for the most part, these have been very images that have been grounded in a sense of service, a sense of loving compassion, desire to help, support. They are still linked in many ways and are anchored still in many ways to the ego personality, because that's where we've lived, right? That's how we've grown. That's the vehicle through which we have learned our lessons. Now, and I'm smiling because I'm just suddenly getting another layer to this, which is really beautiful. And that is that our ego has done exactly what it was designed to do. It has taken us out into the world to have those experiences, to learn, to grow, in order to be able to let go of many of the defense mechanisms that have kept us from living from our higher heart. Why is that the case? Well, the ego is grounded and supported by earth energy, and earth energy is a root chakra. It's about survival, fear and courage, but ultimately it's about survival. Now, in the old days, survival, in the old days, saber-toothed tiger days, it would have been, being able to defend yourself against a tiger. It would be making sure you had enough food, whatever the basic elements of survival were. Well, in a complex society now, that gets translated into, do we have the communication skills to be able to do what we need to do within our community? Do we have skills to offer, to exchange? Are we able to make money? And in order to make money, we have to have skills, we have to have community, we have to have connection. Are we able to take care of our basic needs, but understanding that those basic needs are going to be expressed differently in a modern society than they would be in a primitive one? So here we are. I just think this is beautiful, because here we are at this turning point on the earth, on the planet, where, I want to say this right, the old structures, thank you, the old social structures that have been based on the old ego concepts are now coming to light. Where they have been, can I use the word perverted without YouTube getting me? I don't know. Where they have been perverted into power structures that are designed to take advantage of people in order for a certain group of people to have more money than they need, greater social connection, more of the basic needs that go so far beyond the basic needs that it takes away from other people. This is where we're getting to see on a global level where that transition into higher conscious mind is in contradiction to ego structure conscious mind. Now, on a personal level, what does this mean? On a personal level, what this means is you are at a point where, and I'm saying you now because this is specifically for Scorpio Collective again, you are now at a point where you are looking in the mirror, many of these different mirrors. And while you may still like the look of that mirror, it doesn't feel quite right to who you are here. And you might like the look of what you see reflected in that mirror, but it doesn't feel quite right either. Now, you might look at some of those mirrors and kind of like the image of the cheese grater, look at that and go, yeah, that's good. That's worth it. I'll do that. But it's still about reinforcing the reflection of that particular thing rather than checking into the deeper heart and saying, why does it feel good? Does it just feel good because it satisfies an image that I had of myself that made me feel valuable? Does it feel right because I now get to imagine that my community is still going, bravo, look there. There they go. Great. Because the thing is, all of that's relevant and there's nothing wrong with that. It can be a great motivator. But when you're at a point where you are shifting into really operating from a higher conscious mind, the first point of reference has to be, does it delight you? That sounds really new agey, but does it make your heart feel expanded and joyful, like you are stretching your toes in the sand and opening your arms wide and going, yes, to life? Or does it feel like, yes? Because this is where we start looking at the frequency and the motivation for what we're doing. Why are we doing that? Why are we just sticking to the old traditional way, which is very ego-based? Why are we doing that and not saying, okay, I can blitz the cheese in this thing, and then I'm going to have 2 hours. What do I want to do with that 2 hours? I think I'd like to go to the beach. Or, gosh, I really been wanting to read that book. Or, I want to take this course and now I have the time. The idea is, it's not any one thing. It's the attitude with which you're doing it. Now, the attitude with which you're doing it is the attitude you are being encouraged to do it with, to do whatever you're doing with, is that sense of release. So please check in with choices that you're making and see if they're coming from that place of, yes, must get that done. And it might feel really good, accomplished. But if you check in, maybe what you really want to do is just kick back on the couch and pick up that novel. Not even an educational book, but a novel. How wicked is that? In the middle of a work week where everybody else is working and for some reason you don't have to. How does that feel? Does that just feel uncomfortable? Or have you bothered to question yourself about what would actually feel really nice and be stretching beyond the limits? And the fascinating thing is the stretching beyond the limits now is really about stretching beyond your internal limits. What are your internal boundaries that have sent you to the old cheese grater? Now, there's more here. And it is this. When you give up those going to those mirrors or using those mirrors as a reference point, you're literally changing the energy. I'm really literally seeing it like you are cutting the energy between an inner part of you and an outer part of you, which actually is really exciting, and I've never seen it like this before. It's literally now like, oh, thank you. You're cutting the connection and you're pulling the energy back to your center. You're pulling the energy back to your center, and this is part of the way that you learn from the ego structure, and you bring the information and you bring the experience back for integration. So as you do that with each individual image, each individual reflection, each individual role that you've put time and energy into that has supported a positive self-image, that's where the movement towards higher consciousness happens. That's how it happens. And it's difficult when it happens all at once, which can certainly happen when there's like a collapse of one thing that leads to a collapse of another, or when it feels like it's something that has not been initiated by you. And that's when the personality can go, who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? But it can happen at a more subtle level, even when you make the choice to pull back the energy from that image and bring it to your core. I'm smiling because I've never imagined it like this, and it makes so much sense to me now as the way they're showing it to me. You can end up feeling kind of disconnected, especially if it's one that you've really held a lot of value in. You can have that sense literally of kind of like wandering around in the dark. Like imagine if you're in this room and the only light in this dark room is what's coming at you off these mirrors, and all of a sudden now you're saying no, not that mirror, and you're turning it around, and not that mirror. Gradually the space you're in can become darker, and that's what it can feel like. It can feel almost disorienting, and it can feel kind of lost, like where am I, who am I, what am I doing? And it can create a sense of almost disconnection from the world. It could lead to depression. Certainly it could lead to a sense of depression, depending upon how intense the circumstances are and what the details are. But it can also just feel like a sense of, I don't know who I am exactly right now. I don't know where I am going exactly right now. And it can feel quite frightening. It can feel disorienting. It can bring up a lot of emotions that run almost parallel to depression, or loss and loss and grief. Like it can bring those up. So what you're being reminded of, my dear Scorpio, is as you are doing this, remember, the cards that I'm getting here are surrender into the process. It's not about giving up, and it's not about losing anything. It's literally like the equivalent of you climbing a staircase up to another level without really knowing where you're going, without understanding why you're climbing it. Now you know why you're climbing it, and now you know there is another level. You're surrendering into a state of almost, not limbo exactly, but it is that sense of there you go. You get certainty and doubt. It's that sense of, it's really literally taking a step into the unknown. Whether you're actually stepping anywhere right now, or whether or not, whether or not you know where you're going with this or not, it is that sense of adventure, almost. Like if you can turn it into like this sense of adventure and trust that risk success, that by allowing yourself to float for a little bit of time, not having to reinforce old images of yourself that were positive. I think this could have been a much shorter reading. If you could risk the doubt, you shall end in certainty. And the point of that is beautiful. If you're willing to proceed without reinforcing old images just because it makes you feel comfortable, not knowing where you're going, but surrendering into the process of it, you're going to end up discovering something about yourself that is beyond what you're going to end up discovering something about yourself that is beyond what you imagined. So if you're willing to be existing in doubt for a little while, what you'll find as you move through the process is you'll find something far more valuable. Now, you're getting really, really interesting cards here. You've got the certainty and doubt, surrender. So it's surrender, not giving up. It's trust that if you can exist in doubts without the reinforcement, that you're going to end up in a place where you are quite certain about where it is you're going, what it is you're doing, what the next step is, what the next journey is, and have comfort with that and almost an excitement of that. In fact, it's going to be, can you treat it playfully? Can you let yourself just see this as though, okay, now I'm ready to look at this now as though it's a new day and I get to choose all these new things. Use your choice muscle. Really be aware of what you're choosing. Don't choose out of habit. Don't choose to go to the old cheese grater just because it's familiar. And stop and allow yourself to check in with when you are not in a great mood, whether it's feeling lost, whether it's feeling like you're in grief about letting things go, whatever the emotion is, whenever there is an energy and emotion, because emotion's an energy that's coming in that is pulling you down, you're being asked, stop and allow yourself to notice, what is it? What's the thought? What's the choice of thought that is telling you things can't be better? Things stop. Anytime you find a thought that is throwing you into doubt, just stop and allow and say, okay, what could I think differently? How could I think differently? What could I choose instead? And you can reflect on that and you can say, well, okay, is that because of my past? What is it about my past? Where am I right now? Feeling the dense energy, the heaviness. Is it when I look at the past? Is it when I'm anticipating future possibilities in a fearful way? And choose. Choose the kind of thought you want to go to next. Choose the activity that's going to break that spell, that energetic momentum. Can you see this as spirit literally? Oh gosh, it's literally like you're being lifted up. Literally like you're being lifted up, like there are divine hands that are lifting you up like this and just saying, they're saying, okay, now just ride with us here. And you're looking over the edge, you're going, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. But as you go there and you have that kind of anxiety about what it is you're leaving behind, it's literally like you're slowing down the momentum up. And Spirit is saying, no, you don't need to do that. You can risk success. You really can risk success in this. And and remember that God is head over heels in love with you. And trust that. Trust that. I know that just sounds like so new agey and everything, but what that card really represents to me is God loves you no matter what you're doing. This is what this card says. What if you knew that God totally adored all of you, even the quirky things or the parts of you you're unhappy with or critical of? Well, what if God loves you even if you give up doing because you think you should? What if you allow yourself to just kick back on the couch and read a novel? Part of what you're learning is to be loved and to feel lovable no matter what you're doing, to let go of whatever guilt comes along. This is what you're being held in the energy so that you can dismantle anything that's holding you back in that old place and keeping you from being able to move into this higher frequency of beingness. How's that for all metaphysical? Okay. But you really are being told, okay, this is where you get to go now. What choices are you making that hold you back? When you find yourself reflecting on things that create doubt for you, where is it coming from? Which one of those mirrors can you look at this and can you look at what your mirrors are and what they bring you? And if when you look into any individual mirror that you're thinking of withdrawing from, can you get a feel of what the energy of that is? When you're looking at that, is it because you're looking at the image and the image is good? Is it because you're afraid that if you give that image up, there will be a part of you, like the saber-toothed tiger person, caveman thing, that there's a part of you that is giving something up that has been keeping you anchored in the world in a way that has kind of helped support you? Is there fear of letting it go because of some loss in yourself, if you do that, or some loss within your community? Look at that and really go back to the idea of You get to choose. God is head over heels in love with you. How can you play in a way and positive triggers? This is very much about you keeping positive triggers for yourself. Remembering that whether you kick back on the couch and read that fiction novel, doesn't matter. You might feel disoriented. Check in with that. But that's part of changing frequencies. That's part of that kind of loss about where you're going and what you're doing. Loss of knowing that the ego so badly wants to know because that's where it feels secure. You're leaning into the unknown, which involves trust at a much higher level. Okay, Scorpio, I think this is quite long, and I hope that it makes sense to you. For some reason, a lot of metaphysical stuff came through today in this reading, and I hope it's of value to whoever listens. It has certainly helped me, even though I'm not a Scorpio. Okay, there you go, my friends. Take care. Just know you've got the support. So go back and listen to this and check in and see what resonates with you, okay? Okay, take care.